If you're just joining us, this is the France 24 debate. The French Parliament this week will vote on legislation that will turn the tables on prostitution. Instead of penalizing the prostitute, it would penalize the client. We've been talking about it with Pauline ARRIGHI, the member of Osez le Féminisme. I guess you would translate as Dare to be a feminist, or it would be I suppose, the right way to translate. Also with us, Gil MIHAELY, co-founder of Causeur.fr, and Causeur, one of the signatories of a manifesto against this bill. From London, Cari MITCHELL of the English Collective of Prostitutes, and from the University of Stockholm, Max WALTMAN. Many people have been asking us this Wednesday, why now? Why is this bill being brought before the French Parliament at this particular time? One of the co-sponsors, socialist Cari MITCHELL, explains.
Prostitution in France has changed enormously. Most people working as prostitutes have been trafficked here by mafia organizations. It's modern slavery of people who come from Africa, Eastern Europe and China. People who come here to try to live, to survive. We say that prostitutes should not be seen as criminals but as victims, and that the client, the one buying sex, is the one fueling prostitution.
Yes, there's the theory and then there's the practice. Lawmakers say there are between 20 and 40,000 prostitutes in France. Again, these are statistics that come from the parliamentary committee that came up with the bill. 80% said to be women. Today, 90% of them foreigners. And what's striking, Gil MIHAELY, is if you look at this graph, that since over the past couple of decades, how it's gone from being French-born prostitutes to foreign-born prostitutes. 3 nations, Nigeria, Romania, China, a lot of them. And surely these are all people who are under duress, if not victims of human trafficking.
First of all, what this debate allowed us is to re-examine all the figures that were branded all over. And I know that, for example, the Senate committee, especially Senator Esther Benbassa, who's working on it, has different numbers. We don't know if these figures correspond to the visible street prostitution or to the whole of the prostitution.
Yeah, because as the sponsor of the bill was saying, a lot of this is happening over the internet, and it's hard to monitor.
So we really don't know. And another thing, a few of the foreign prostitutes that were interviewed also said that it's a kind of a choice. I mean, the fact that a prostitute in France is foreigner doesn't mean that she is working for a pimp and that she is not free. And I think that one of the things that should be done is to have the correct numbers, and instead of putting money into running after the clients, put all the money on the effort in preventing illegal prostitution, in preventing human trafficking, in chasing the pimps, in chasing the mafia networks that smuggle people into the country.
Okay. On this point,
can I say something?
Go ahead, Cari MITCHELL.
Yes, we had a similar situation. We have similar arguments in this country. The figures that the government used were put together by an organisation which profited from alleging that and spreading misinformation about the numbers of women who were trafficked. They did research, calling up flats and asking women where they were from. And if they had a foreign accent, they were assumed to be immigrant. They were assumed to have been, they said, untold numbers could be trafficked. And on this basis of massive assumptions of women working indoors in London, where they found a high number of immigrant women. I mean, London is run on the work of immigrant people, immigrant women and men. They told the government, and the government picked up these figures, that 80% of women working in the sex industry were trafficked. They presented figures which were misused, and they never denied that they were being misused. So governments all over the place are using these figures as an excuse to increase immigration legislation. That's what happened in this country. They said these women are being trafficked and we have to increase police raids. And what happened was that immigrant sex workers were deported. And I would be very surprised if that is not behind these, the spreading of these figures in France as well.
Pauline ARRIGHI,
the fact is that most sex workers are not trafficked. As the gentleman said, most women, whether they're immigrant women who come to Britain, they may have had to pay somebody to help them get in, but when they get here, women make great efforts to work independently, and most sex workers are working independently.
All right, Pauline,
whatever the government likes to say.
First,
and there's
Pauline
a lot
ARRIGHI,
of misinformation around.
First, Pauline ARRIGHI, and then Max Waltman. Pauline ARRIGHI.
Thank you.
In France, that's not what people inside of the Interior Ministry are saying.
Yeah, we don't have accurate numbers, but we know that the vast majority of prostitutes are victims of trafficking networks. And of course, if you ask a woman on the street who is from Nigeria or China and who can hardly speak French, Madam, are you independent? Is it your choice? Of course, she will tell you yes, because she's under influence of a pimp. And she knows that being a pimp is illegal, so she just can't tell you the truth because she's in the network.
I'm sorry, when the French are going into Central Africa right now, can they speak Central African languages? I mean, what are you saying? That's outrageous.
I would like to add a few things to this discussion here. The first, Mr. MIHAELY, he said that prostitution is just like any other job. Poor people they're not free. If you compare prostitution to, say, working at a fast food restaurant, people working at fast food restaurants, they don't have post-traumatic stress disorder or other mental disorders that are just as high as treatment-seeking combat veterans or victims of state torture. That's the level of abuse that women in prostitution face worldwide. There are numerous studies showing that whether they are prostituted indoors, in strip clubs, even in pornography, on the streets, the majority have suffered from mental disorders and a number of physical violence exercised by clients. None of these conditions occur in other regular low-wage jobs. And to say that, well, one bad study in Great Britain where they had faulty methodology, it doesn't matter. There are so many studies showing that the population in prostitution, they are under extreme duress. Most of them have been homeless during certain times in their lives. And so I would like to state that saying that most women who are foreign are not trafficked, there's no way that could hold if you look at the different studies.
Gil MIHAELY.
I just want to make something clear. I don't think that prostitution is just like any other job. This is not what I said. What I was saying that if we consider adults that have economic difficulties as not free, we have a huge problem. We have a huge problem. This is one. And what was the second thing I wanted to say?
We'll get back to that point, but it does bring us back to the question, Pauline ARRIGHI. Why is this bill coming up now? Why now, in your view?
There has been a lot of... it's the result of a process. France has had an abolitionist position for decades, so it's not this law is not a surprise or it's not unintended.
It's not a surprise to you. Gil, why do you think it's coming up now, this bill?
I think it's a coincidence. The government, it was one of the promises that the president made.
Co-sponsor the bill is from the right wing, and there are a lot of conservative MPs who are going to be voting for the bill, and there are people on the left who are going to be voting against. How do you explain that the lines between left and right are blurred here?
Because this is not a purely political question. It's a question of world vision. It's a question of what you think about liberty, what you think about sex. And if you have if you have a very strong opinion of liberty, you can be either from the left or from the right. You could be a feminist, because the tree of feminism has many branches, and feel that respecting women's choice, even when they are poor, is very important. Then you're against the law. And if you have a vision where you want to normalize sexual relationship, when you want to decide for people how they should live, then you are for this law.
All right, let me give you just a little look at what's happening elsewhere in Europe. We've talked a little bit about Sweden. The rules have changed on the continent. We can show you nations, for instance, where prostitution is forbidden and punished. And we can also call up a graph of countries. There you see Sweden, Norway, the Scandinavian countries. Iceland has also come through with a similar bill. And then there are those countries like Germany, where since 2002, the sex trade has been completely liberalized. Now, that in Germany in particular has been sparking a backlash. It was reportedly even included in coalition talks that have been going on between the CDU and the SDP. The Economist newspaper called it in a recent article a giant Teutonic brothel, writing that the best guess is that Germany has about 400,000 prostitutes catering to 1 million men a day, mocking the spirit of the law. Exactly 44 of them, including 4 men, have registered for welfare benefits. And just over the border in the French region of Lorraine, the local press has honed in on plans for a 6,000 square meter, 5-story brothel called Paradise Island in Saarbrücken. The locals also say liberalization, despite the fact that there's been all these measures taken to bring it above board and to have it sanctioned, has drawn more prostitutes to the streets.
Can I just say something?
I worked in a brothel. There were about 20 girls there. I had at least 10 clients a day. The client paid 50 euros for 20 minutes. I handed over half of the money to the brothel owner.
What is your look, Cari Mitchell, on what's the German experiment over the past decade? Is it a failure?
Well, Germany has state-run prostitution. Sorry, could you turn my thing off? Hang on. Germany has state-run prostitution, but most women there work outside of the legalized areas. Sex workers want decriminalisation. And what hasn't been mentioned tonight is what they've done in New Zealand, where they decriminalised prostitution 10 years ago. And first of all, and importantly, it has made it safer for women to work, because women, if women are attacked, they can come forward to the authorities and report without any fear of arrest. Whether women are working
Why in Germany have people decided to stay on the street?
Or are working indoors.
Cari
and
Mitchell.
We think that governments really should look at what's happened in New Zealand, where it is shown that it has made it safer, and safety has to be the priority.
And Cari Mitchell,
why hasn't it? It has to be the priority.
Cari Mitchell, why hasn't it worked in Germany? Why have people decided to stay on the streets rather than sign up for with the government and in a more sanitized and formal way?
Well, I didn't say that women decided to stay on the streets. What I said was most women don't want to work in the legalised brothels, but they don't want to forego their security, their anonymity, and don't want to have to pay money over to any brothel owners. It's a very factory-like system. What sex workers want is for sex work to be decriminalised, for consenting sex, which is what prostitution is, to be removed from the criminal law, and for money and resources, housing, welfare, all those resources to be in women's hands so that we have a real choice. Most sex workers, as I said before, are mothers struggling to support families. And without those choices, it's very difficult to, many women go into prostitution because we don't have choices. Most women go into prostitution. We do not have those economic choices. Everywhere we know in Europe, there are terrible welfare cuts. You know, wages are being cut, welfare is being cut. These cuts are hitting women first, so that it is not surprising that more women are going on the streets, are going into prostitution, but at the same time, this criminalisation of clients is going to increase criminalisation. It's going to increase the danger that women already face in prostitution. Let me
bring in Max Waltman
clients
here.
Underground, and therefore women further underground and into more danger. And this is what these so-called feminists and these so-called Swedish academics have to be responsible for.
Right,
we just had a murder of a woman
let me bring in Max
in
Waltman
East
here.
London following a big police crackdown.
Cari Mitchell, please, because the time is limited.
This is the consequence
Max
of driving
Waltman,
women
let me
underground.
ask you, Max Waltman, the German model.
Yes.
Why hasn't it worked?
Well, it's because part of what she said just a minute ago, anonymity, yes. Most people in prostitution do not want to have records that they have been in prostitution. So 44 persons registering for social benefits, that makes sense. But it's also because persons in prostitution are in a desperate position. They don't have any leverage towards the brothel owners or managers. They have to accept the terms that are driven by the demand, by the sex buyers. And she mentioned also New Zealand. Actually, the government reports which interviewed prostitute women did not show that there was a reduction in violence. I have a quote that I have published in a number of articles of mine from the government report in New Zealand that says that violence was not reduced. And the same goes for Germany. Their government report also found that there have been no health or safety improvement, that trafficking is not lower, and that there are no clear patent benefits from having legalized it. It's also a fact that in those countries where prostitution has been legalized or where brothels have been able to operate legally, it has increased competition. There has been an increase in demand, increase in competition, especially in Germany. There was an article in Der Spiegel just a month ago where there were a number of witnesses, women in prostitution, who said that they were now forced to have unsafe sex more often, sex without a condom, and that the clients demanded more dangerous acts such as gangbangs or oral sex without condoms or other form of dehumanization. And that also was reported in New Zealand, in Australia, in Nevada, in legal brothels. Legalization makes it's a norm, accepted to buy women in prostitution, and it also increases the various demands from sex buyers.
All right, so there's no clear answer there. There's also the question of whether or not the perception of what is prostitution is changing. Tonight, having this discussion sheds light on who are these women, something we don't often get to talk about. Is the perception in France changing at all?
Yes, and what is important also in the issue of legalizing prostitution, like in Germany or not, is that now if you consider prostitution as a normal job, if you consider pimps as entrepreneurs, because it's what's happening in Germany. If you are a pimp, you can open your own business in Germany and import young women or young girls from countries where they are forced to go and be used in prostitution, and it's considered normal. And if you are a client, you go to a brothel and you can be very violent to prostitutes, and it's considered normal. So if you consider it a bit more like broadly, it tells the man, if you are a man, you can go to a place where you can, because you pay someone, you can have sex with a woman who doesn't want it. So you can force a woman to have sex with you, even though she doesn't want it.
Nice.
So it's then, of course, the perception of women is totally biased, and that's why in Sweden, with the law on abolition, the law on abolition didn't increase the number of rapes or violence against women, because men don't have the same perception of prostitutes and of women, and the society is more equal as a whole.
You are deluded.
It's a bit of a strong statement, Cari. Why are you saying that?
Well, because, first of all, New Zealand has made it safer because women can come forward and report attacks. And I don't know where you're getting the evidence for that attacks have continued. But of course, I mean, there's rape in marriage, even though rape in marriage is unlawful in this country. You know, women are still attacked by their husbands and partners. In this country, you know, more than 2 women are killed by wives and partners in this country, even though it's unlawful. So the question is the implementation of the laws. The laws can be there, but it's the implementation of the laws, and it's the question of whether the police are taking reports from women seriously. Our contacts, our sisters in New Zealand, have definitely were part of
and
the
it's illegal and it's bad,
review of the laws, which clearly showed that women are saying that they feel safer, and they are reporting attacks to the police, and they are forcing the police to take them seriously.
Okay, Pauline ARRIGHI,
go ahead. You said that it's illegal that a woman is forced in marriage and so on. So it should be also illegal that that a man force a woman because she's a prostitute, because it's the same thing. No, as a client, it's not illegal for you to go to the Bois de Boulogne, to go to the woods and do whatever you like to a prostitute just because she's there.
No. A client can do whatever he wants. The prostitute has to agree to have sex, and what kind of sex.
But you just say that she was forced because of economic pressure. You said it yourself.
And so I'm saying that
economic pressure on everybody to earn money.
Everybody has economic pressure. And as for post-traumatic syndrome, I'm sure that policemen that during their careers knocked on people's door to announce that the son or the daughter were killed in an accident, they also have post-traumatic reactions. So
not as badly as prostitutes.
I don't know. I'm just saying that this is not a criteria. And I just want to say something. In the question of prostitution, we are here in front of a very problematic phenomena. When NASA sent a vessel to the space, and they put a plaque to introduce humanity to extraterrestrial intelligent creatures, they didn't write about prostitution. In France, a bordel is called Maison de Tolérance. There are not good solutions. There are only less bad solutions. And I think that the worst idea is to try and think like in utopia, that we will create a world without poverty, without prostitution. Right. Let's try to do a little, make the world a little better. Okay, and it's enough.
We'll have to leave it there, unfortunately, because we're out of time. Gil MIHAELY, I want to thank you. I want to thank Cari MITCHELL in London, Max Waltman in Stockholm, and Pauline ARRIGHI for being with us here in Paris. Before we say goodbye to you, though, let's say hello to James Creedon. As you can see, a heated discussion here, and it's been a heated discussion as well in the papers, not just today, but in the past weeks.
Right, this has been a big debate online, François, for the last number of weeks. Just to show you the front pages of some French papers this morning, which interestingly, 3 French dailies chose the same front page headline, the oldest debate in the world. Libération, the free paper 20 Minutes, and also Sud-Ouest, if I can find it, here it is. But I suppose what's been most interesting to follow online is all of these petitions and manifestos which are against this whole notion of criminalising the punter or the customer. The most famous one, it was the very provocative Hands Off My Whore campaign.
Which Gil MIHAELY signed.
Right, provocative for many reasons, because it also refers to the what was it, the manifesto of the 343 sluts. Back in 1971, which was to highlight the right of women to seek abortion. And this time they called it the Manifesto of the 343 Bastards. So in the choice of language, it was a provocative move. A lot of people criticised it. You can see here another headline. He's one of the guys who signed it, Frédéric Becbédé. And you had this website, the 343 Connards, or...
All right.
It's another.
Let's not get into slander.
Where you can basically reply to each of the people who signed it. So it's a way of allowing the public to express their disagreement with these people who disagree with criminalising the punters. Now, others, in a less provocative way, also put petitions out there, and such as feminists. This one appeared in Libération, and their argument is, because we are feminist, we refuse a law that prioritises repression over real political, economic and social measures to fight against male domination, poverty, unemployment and the precarity of women. Now that's feminists. You also had celebrities, including Catherine Deneuve, who signed another petition, again with more measured language, and she became the face in a lot of the British press for that. You can see how The Independent here has kind of painted it as a very French debate. France's compromising position, why a new law to criminalise punters rather than prostitutes, is inflaming French passions. Now that's for all of these petitions, right? But prostitutes themselves have been having their say. Prostitution, I was only a merchandise or a product, says one prostitute who spoke to Le Monde. Now her argument was, I was a prostitute for 20 years. I suffered the insults, the humiliating demands of customers. I worked alongside French people in deep distress. I was merely a product. Another prostitute, pretty much mirroring that point of view, spoke to the Huffington Post. She said that her experience was, she experienced prostitution as a succession of rapes, and that she can't believe the degree of complacency and the pure fantasies when the reality is so cruel and so violent. She's very critical of the public debate. Now, you also have prostitutes who are saying that their experience of prostitution is anything but negative. It was a choice. They weren't pushed into it by economic necessity. This person here, speaking to the Huffington Post, was a nurse, training as a nurse, and decided to become a prostitute of her own free will.
So feminists on both sides of the argument, prostitutes on both sides of the argument. James Crean, we're going to have to leave it there.
Thanks, François.
Many thanks. I want to thank our panel. Thank you for joining us for the France 24 debate.
Thank you.